everyone, coming to you live from my bathroom because this had the best lighting and it was the quietest place to film. So today's video was requested by approximately one person, so keep the request coming because we will literally do anything that even one person wants. So the topic of today's video is NSOP, which is NSOP, and it stands for New Student Orientation Program. And basically what it is, so your freshman year you will do this orientation program. I was actually thinking about it today, wondering what the situation will be with that because of Corona. Like I'm actually not sure what this incoming freshman class to Barnard and Columbia will do. Hopefully you guys have some sort of orientation. I don't really know, but assuming that things get back to normal, hopefully by the time that you would have this program, we'll just talk about what it would be like. So NSOP, my freshman year was 2016, and it was the last week of August. So school started the day after Labor Day, which is usually like a Tuesday, like September 3rd or 4th. And so NSOP is just the week before that. So you have Monday through Friday, a weekend, Monday, and then classes start on Tuesday. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. So basically what it's intended to do is as a freshman, you would go to campus, you move in a week before everyone else, and you have a group that you're in. So you have a group leader, and usually maybe you can be a sophomore, junior, or senior to be an orientation leader. So you'll get either a sophomore, junior, or senior group leader, and they email you during the summer to kind of like get to know you and ask you some questions, or at least that's what my group leader did. So they give you the names of the other people in your group, all that kind of stuff. I loved my group leader. Her name is Maddie. Shout out. She was so good. I really, really liked her. And personally, just with my group, sorry, there's like a bird flying over my house. Okay, anyways, with my group, I feel like we all gelled really well. Like, I can see how it might be awkward if nobody in your group really wants to talk, or like no one really breaks the ice, but I feel like just right off the bat, like we all, I don't know, just like we weren't all best friends, but it like wasn't awkward, and people would actually talk, which was a big thing. Like there's nothing more uncomfortable than when you're in like a group setting like that and nobody wants to talk. It's just like, okay, like this is weird for everyone, like someone just talk. So yeah, the first day that we all met up, I think we had like a dinner, we got to know each other, and they basically do an overview of like what you should expect in the program. So it's kind of like a combination of getting to know the Barnard campus, the Columbia campus, the relationship between the two, but then also there's like a New York City element of what to expect living in New York City, especially for people who aren't from a city or aren't from New York. So I remember there was one event where you like rode the subway, and they kind of explained like the subway system a little bit. We also went to a Mets game. That was actually really fun. I liked the off-campus stuff. I thought it was like nice to be forced to do stuff because it's like some people would complain about it, but it's like, what else are you gonna do? You literally don't know anyone. So that was nice. And also I think we were supposed to have a trip to Coney Island, but that got canceled because it was raining. So that's like the off-campus aspect. They just kind of do throw some events for us, and that's all free too, like the baseball games and the like subway rides. I'm pretty sure that was all like covered by the program. But besides that, there are mandatory events. Oh my god, I'm literally out of breath. Okay, there are mandatory events. I remember there was a sexual assault like seminar thing. There was also our president. Why can't I remember who I had freshman year? Oh my god, what was her name? I'll insert it here. We had a different president before Baylock, but she, oh my god, what was her name? I literally can't remember. Okay, but she like did a little talk too, like those kind of events were mandatory. And if you couldn't show up for some reason, which literally why wouldn't you be able to show up? Like what else are you doing? Like your OL, who's your orientation leader, that's what people call them, your OL would contact you and be like, where are you at? We used GroupMe also mostly for that kind of stuff, but my OL, Maddie, I think also gave us all her like personal numbers and was just like text me or call me if you need anything. Another helpful thing that I liked about NSOP was a lot of the events were over meal times, which was awesome because there's nothing more like nerve-wracking than being like, oh my god, who am I gonna eat food with? Like who am I gonna get meals with? All that kind of stuff. And we also, some of the things were catered, so you would get like bagged lunches, which were okay. Like don't judge the food based on what you get in NSOP, because I remember being like, this food like isn't very good. That's a side note though. But overall, things to do with NSOP, I feel like some people, there's like NSOP friends, which is this ongoing joke that like all the friends you become with in NSOP won't actually end up being your friend, which there's definitely some truth to that. Like obviously you're going to cling to some people that you met during NSOP or who were in your group, and then naturally that will fade away as you meet new people. And I think that's totally fine. I don't think it needs to be this derogatory thing like, oh, we were NSOP friends, but now we're not friends anymore. Like, of course it's gonna happen. I think that's just to be expected, and don't worry if you realize that like the people that you were friends with during that don't actually end up being your friends. And also, I remember feeling really overwhelmed during NSOP just because there were so many events, but at the same time, when there was like time that was unscheduled time in the day, that also felt weirdly stressful because it was like, what am I supposed to do? Like you don't really have friends yet, like it's very weird. So it was like I was grateful when there was stuff to do, like mandatory things, but then I also felt overwhelmed and I wanted the time off, but when there was time off, I was like, I don't know what to do. So that's also a normal reaction. Also like time during NSOP, it's kind of like quarantine time. It's like different. NSOP is only a week, but I'm telling you, it feels like a month. Like it felt never ending. And I remember like towards the end, I really just wanted classes to start. Like I wanted a schedule, I wanted work to do, like boom, boom. I wanted all of that. I was kind of done with it. And I think that's also a normal reaction, because there's an element of NSOP that feels very like, how do I say this? Like kumbaya, like sing around the campfire. And if you're not that kind of person, it's just like, ugh, I don't know. I can't really explain it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like going to camp as like an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old, and you're just like, this isn't really my vibe. But for some people, they really thrive in that situation. So it's very like individual, but it really does feel like summer camp. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's like a good way to describe it. Of course, there's the big question that I actually have not mentioned yet about how do they integrate Barnard, Columbia. So to be perfectly honest, the programs are separated in a lot of ways, and I feel like they kind of present themselves as being like a cohesive thing, like both NSOPs are the same, which I guess they are. Like they're run by the same committee, you do similar things, but it did feel very divided to me. Like at no point did I feel like we were doing the same thing as the Columbia kids, really. And maybe I'm remembering wrong, but like all of our NSOP stuff did feel really like Barnard centric, which like obviously I feel like that's totally okay. Like you are going to Barnard, but there wasn't as much crossover. Now I think I remember my OL did offer to like show us around the Columbia campus, which was really helpful. So I guess also part of your NSOP experience will really be dictated by who your OL is. Like I can't stress that enough. Like if you get a bad OL, then it might not be a great experience, but it's just like anything else. It's about like who's in your group too. So depending on your OL and who they're friends with, you might have more of a connection to Columbia with your NSOP, because I remember she did have some friends who were Columbia students, and I think that helped because outside of what was regularly programmed or scheduled by NSOP, she would bring us to Columbia and like show us around, just because she had Columbia friends who were OLs for Columbia's NSOP. So that also plays into it. But there was one like planned thing for Columbia and Barnard to interact, and I remember it was a dinner, and we met our, okay, how do I explain this? So basically each Barnard group was matched up with a Columbia group, and you would have dinner with them. Yeah, so we met on Lowe's steps. We met on Lowe's steps and we had dinner, and I remember, it was just like really awkward. Like, I'm being very honest, here's the tea. It was really awkward. I was glad that I had like friends in my NSOP group, my Barnard group, like we sat and ate, but it was like not integrated. Like, we weren't really talking to the Columbia kids. I don't know, it was just weird. Like, you didn't feel one and the same. You definitely felt divided, and I feel like freshman year, I think we said this before in another video, is the year that you're gonna feel the biggest division between the two schools, because some Columbia people have preconceived notions about Barnard, just like even Barnard students have preconceived notions about Columbia. Like, it goes both ways. And yeah, I feel like this like group meeting where we were like supposed to be integrating with the Columbia kids, it was just like very weird. Yeah, honestly very weird. Another thing during NSOP is that there's like club fairs, activity fairs or whatever that you can go to. That was super overwhelming. I remember walking from booth to booth, and like obviously everyone who's representing their club or their like council, whatever it is, wants you to join, but you can't even like imagine like being able to thrive in a club and have your first semester. Like, that was definitely overwhelming to me. Once again, I think this depends on the kind of person you are, because if you're someone who needs a lot on their plate, then I'm sure like you would want to dive headfirst into things. And I did end up joining SPEC, the Columbia Spectator, my freshman year, which I can do a whole separate video about if you want to know about like extracurriculars or what it was like to join SPEC. I can also do that. But yeah, so I guess in a nutshell, NSOP felt really long, it felt overwhelming, kind of awkward, it felt like a summer camp, like, and as far as like integrating Barnard and Columbia, and maybe they've changed this since 2016, but it did feel very unnatural and awkward, to be honest. Yeah. And it definitely did feel pressure to like look like you were having fun, but looking back on it, you know, not everyone was having fun. Like, everyone was probably feeling the same way, but you're in the moment, you're just like, oh my god, you're my best friend, this is so great. But just know that like it's okay if you're feeling weird about it. Yeah, and then this is just a side note, but if anyone wants a video on freshman like housing and dorms at Barnard, I feel like we could also do that in the process of getting a roommate, because that's also kind of parallel to NSOP, because that's where you meet your roommates. You're not in an NSOP group with your roommate. I'm pretty sure they purposefully make it so that you guys are all in different NSOP groups, and that's a whole other thing that you're dealing with in conjunction with NSOP, is like meeting your roommates, figuring out your housing situation. All freshmen live in the quad at Barnard, so we can go over each of the different housing options you might get. Diana requested her roommate so she can speak to that, and I went random and I filled out the questionnaire and I got put in a triple. So if there's anyone out there who wants a video on like what it's like to live in a multiple room freshman year, that whole experience, we can review the dorms too and talk about each of them, because you'll either live in Souls, Reed, or Brooks. We can also do something on that. So yeah, just let us know. I hope this was helpful. I feel like I was rambling a lot. And take everything I said with a grain of salt, because my experience was 4 years ago and they might have totally changed it. And like I said, because of Corona, I'm honestly unsure what they'll do with NSOP. Like, I don't know if this freshman class will even have an NSOP, which is really sad. Because as much as it was like awkward, like I still wouldn't want to not have done NSOP. Like, there's a lot of funny memories. So yeah, leave a comment below what videos you want to see, subscribe, and stay healthy.